This is my fourth time attempting to record this intro because my cat keeps screaming at me. And I am at the end of my rope, so I'm not gonna re-record after this. If he screams, that's how it's gonna be. So, hi, I'm finally back with one of these videos after about a million years, so that's fun. I've been having a bit of a time with school and everything, and life has been interesting, but here's this video, I guess. I know I said I would make a Q&A video thingy, but several people asked about when the next Headcanons video is coming out, so I figured that I should work on that while I actually have the energy. I have a feeling that you guys kind of prefer this kind of content anyway. As you can see, I recorded this speed paint in, April, and now it's almost June, so, good job, me. Also, quick disclaimer, I am not a historian. I am an idiot 10th grader, and my history unit on India got cut short because of COVID. So that's fantastic. The point is, I have actually no idea what I'm talking about. Genuinely, truly, I have no idea what I am talking about. So don't listen to anything I'm saying and take it as fact, because I know I'm messing something up here. That's how it's gonna be, you know? So India is relatively chill. There's a problem with political instability and things can get messy, but she does actually try. I can't really speak much to the current politics of India, and honestly I'd rather not, because I don't want to piss people off more than necessary. A lot of people already hate Countryhumans, so let's keep that to a minimum and avoid talking about current politics if that's all right with you guys. Cool. Her brothers are Pakistan and Bangladesh. I'll give you two guesses as to who her favorite sibling is, and the second one does not count. Their biological father is the Mughal Empire, and their kind of adopted father is Britain. We got a case of child abduction or something here. Someone should probably report this. We'll get to all that after we get through relationships and stuff. So Sri Lanka is not actually her biological sister, as her father is the Kandyan kingdom. Sri Lanka was never part of India during British colonial rule and existed as a separate protectorate kind of thing. But I'll get into all that if I do a video about her. I really need a to-do list or something, because this is really getting out of hand. Anyways, the point is, India and Sri Lanka have good relations, and they have kind of a sisterly relationship despite not being directly related. One of her closest allies is Israel. Any enemy of Pakistan is a friend of hers, because that's how things work in this world. And any enemy of Pakistan's friend is also a friend of hers. Case in point, Afghanistan. Not the fake Afghanistan, screw that shit, but since Pakistan is friends with the Taliban, who yes does exist as a character in my headcanon because it feels wrong to characterize the actual Afghanistan as a terrorist organization that brutally overthrew the country back in August. Where was I? Pakistan is friends with the Taliban, and Afghanistan is enemies with the Taliban. Ergo, Afghanistan and India are friends because they have a mutual hatred for Pakistan and the Taliban. That was a mouthful. Anyways, cute. Hoes be mad about me shipping India and Afghanistan because they automatically assume they have bad relations. Stay mad, cry about it, LMAO. But back to Israel, he's one of her greatest friends. They share intelligence, and they kind of enjoy a military partnership, and they're just super chill with each other. And then you have Russia. The Soviet Union, well, we're talking about him again. What a surprise. The Soviet Union was a longtime ally of India, and that good relationship continued after he, like, kicked the bucket and Russia came to power. So India is supporting Russia on the Ukraine thing, which, yikes. Also, I need you to know that I had to focus very, very hard on what words were coming out of my mouth just then, so I didn't accidentally say the forbidden mispronunciation, and I succeeded, so you should be proud of me. I'm proud of me. Anyways, Bhutan and Nepal are very close to her, in terms of, like, relationship, not just geography. They're like good neighbors. She's kind of friends with Tibet, but hasn't done very much for her. She formally recognizes her territory as belonging to China, but I mean, we all know that she hates China and only ever cooperates with him for economic benefits and also to, like, avoid war, because that's fun. So she supports Tibet, just not outright. And the relationship between America and India is kind of complicated. Generally, they get along pretty well as they agree on a lot of issues concerning the Middle East, which I'm not going to get into because then the comment section will be an actual war zone. Japan is also a good friend of India's due to their economic ties and such. India is also friends with pretty much every country in Africa, especially South Africa, who I'm going to do the next Headcanons video if all goes to plan. It's time I do an African country because they are incredibly underrepresented, and it gives me the big sad. But yeah, India always was like, hey, apartheid bad. Apartheid South Africa is like a separate character from current South Africa, because that makes sense. And the current South Africa still has a strong relationship with her. As for her enemies, Pakistan and China are at the top of that list. Pakistan, which I have a dumb thing to, like, read about the partition. But yeah, Pakistan is her number one rival. She doesn't like the situation between them and doesn't, like, necessarily hate him. She just really wants peace, but that's not gonna happen. China, I mean, she just thinks he's an asshole, and she's not really wrong. The Chinese Communist Party is, like, actively committing a genocide and all that. And don't think I'm not about to, like, criticize India for the whole racism situation there and, like, the conflict between Hindus and Muslims. I think India treats its Muslim population like shit, and that's an unfortunate result of decades of war with Pakistan, a nation that is predominantly Muslim. Nothing can justify the way that Muslims are treated in India, and it's just a really tragic situation all around, but I don't know how to talk about it in this video, and I'd rather keep these kinds of videos away from current issues. But I'm aware, to an extent, I'm a stupid American. I'm aware of what's going on, and I don't support it, and I thought I should mention that. Racism bad, discrimination bad. Let's all be friends, okay? Anyways, she and China have a pretty poor relationship, but at the same time, they're somewhat dependent on each other for economic reasons, so they're in a bit of a rough situation when it comes to that. That was a very long relationships explaining part of the video thing. I'm very good at English. And now we get to history, so yay, I guess. Like I said, her father was the Mughal Empire, and he was pretty chill at first. Shit got pretty messy, and religious tolerance got thrown out the window at some point, and that wasn't very epic, but India generally had a good relationship with him. Then Britain came and was like, I smell spices, LOL, XD. Of course, there were other countries like Portugal and the Netherlands who were like, wee woo, spices, epic, but at the end of the day, Britain absorbed the entirety of the subcontinent, so yeah. And he killed the Mughal Empire, so that was a dick move. Britain was a terrible adoptive parent, no real surprise there. Not a gamer moment. she kind of fought with him for a while, and there was an on and off. I don't know whether to like call it a war or not, but there was an on and off conflict, and by on and off I mean that it was always kind of on, but got especially on every few years. Shit hit the fan in 1857 after the Indian Rebellion, and Britain was like, haha, no. And then started treating her like absolute garbage. More so than he already was. I mean, it was the next year in 1858 when the Mughal Empire was deleted under the conditions of the Government of India Act. And by the way, Pakistan and Bangladesh exist as beings at this time, but they're like under the same kind of dominion thingy, so officially they're not separate countries, but they do exist as their own people, if that makes any sense. It probably doesn't. Unfortunately, I don't care. The non-cooperation movement started in 1920, and it did not go very well. The Round Table conferences began in 1930 as Britain kind of attempted to be like, okay, chill, but I'm still in charge. So India was pretty much forced to fight in World War II, as she had been in World War I also, and she was like really torn and even considered fighting against the Allies at one point because there was a giant ass famine in Bengal because Britain was being a piece of shit. But at the end of the day, she was like, never mind, I'm on your side. These Axis bitches are crazy. Of course, there were people in India who did participate on the side of Imperial Japan during the Japanese invasion of India in 1944, which failed miserably, like truly and utterly failed miserably. But India, like the country, God, this is actually so dumb. But India was like, yeah, no. And while she wasn't a very big fan of Britain, she ended up on his side. At the end of the war, Britain was like, okay, yeah, I give up. And the Indian Independence Act called for the partition of India, which I'm going to do some epic reading about since I write Countryhumans fanfiction because I'm a loser. Does it count as fanfiction if it stays true to real life? I don't know. I genuinely just... What am I doing here? Anyway, also people keep saying in the comments of the video on Russia that I, like, predicted the future about Ukraine and stuff when I was reading that thing about how he was mad at her, and it's like, no, I saw the warning signs, and I'm sure that most people did too, but didn't think anything was actually gonna happen. So there wasn't, like, any kind of weird future sight thing going on there, but that video did age like fine wine, if I do say so myself. Quick note, I also want to proceed reading this by saying that this is written from a very biased point of view, as India is, like, the narrator. Sort of like an unreliable narrator kind of thing. I don't know. It's very hard for me as a 16-year-old white girl from America to form my own opinion about a conflict that affected so many millions of people. It's really not my place to speak, so this is written, decisively, like, from one side as a point of view, if that makes any sense. So let's read this. Yay. India read over the Indian Independence Act, quickly yet carefully scanning the large blocks of text. Excitement bubbled in her stomach. This was actually happening. After all these years that she'd spent fighting, well, maybe fighting wasn't the best word since her movement was centered around nonviolence, but after all these years that she'd spent protesting against British rule and campaigning for independence, she was finally getting it. That satisfaction turned a little sour when Pakistan let out a hum of approval, reminding her that he still existed. He was next to her, also reading the document, and he looked relatively pleased with himself. Of course he had to mess this up. All she wanted was a united India. How bad would that be? But her brother had forced stupid political borders upon the three of them for literally no reason that she could see. And East Bengal certainly wasn't really taken into consideration. India had a feeling that he wouldn't like being called East Pakistan. If Pakistan deserved to be his own country, so did East Bengal. But she felt very strongly that they should stay together. They should work as a unit. They'd get more done that way, and they'd be more powerful if they cooperated to form one state. But no, Pakistan had to just whine about independence and how its people would be underrepresented. Well, she supposed that maybe there could be truth to that claim. But India would make sure it wasn't like that. She'd make sure to have everybody's best interests in mind, and she'd listen to her critics and compromise with people who took issue with her. She'd make all the right reforms, and she'd try her best to make everyone happy. The United Kingdom looked at her uneasily, and she realized that her frustration must have snuck its way onto her face. She shook herself and stood up taller, trying to put on an assertive yet calm expression. "How have you drawn up the borders?" she asked, trying not to let the disappointment slip into her tone. There shouldn't have to be borders between them. Britain pushed a map towards her, and she felt a little dizzy while looking at it. Her territory, once a single administration, had been carved up into 3 pieces, one belonging to her and the other 2 under the control of Pakistan. She noticed that East Bengal was studying the map nervously, as if he were afraid the sheet of paper would bite him, observing the new boundaries. He didn't exactly look elated. It shouldn't be like this. "And the princely states?" she asked, trying to brush the thought aside. "For now." "They will have the option to join either of you," Britain replied. She was silent for a moment, unsure of what to say. She couldn't just say nothing. She took in a breath and looked at him. "I still think we should have a united India," she said. He clearly didn't know how to respond. I do not think that's a possibility," he admitted. "You know that there will only be more violence if we don't find a compromise." "Yeah," Pakistan agreed, giving her a weird glare. Was that a threat? She wasn't sure how to respond, so she chose not to. All she really wanted was for them to all be happy together. Why did that have to be so difficult? So that's fun. I mean, it's not fun. It sucks. I don't really think... Oh my gosh, there is an ant on my monitor. Hold on, I need to get a napkin to murder it. Well, guys, I've lost the ant. It is now roaming somewhere on my desk that is extremely cluttered. Maybe this is a lesson that my desk should not be this cluttered. But, where was I? Yeah, I don't think I have the authority to really talk about the conflict from here on out with India and Pakistan, not with me and the ant. Who knows what's going to happen, but yeah, I know it's still a controversial issue, so I'm not going to get into it. That might be, like, a little disappointing for me to skip, like, 70 years of history, but I just don't want to piss anyone off. Again, if I got anything wrong in this video, oops, not a history expert. I'll be doing South Africa's video next, and I'm happy to report that we did actually get through that unit in my history class, so I'm slightly informed about all that, and hopefully that video won't be as messy as this one. Thank you for watching. Sorry it's been forever. Remember to not eat sharp objects you found on the ground. Yes.